Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me today is Megan Schottler. Megan, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
Thanks, Jon. So happy to be here.
All right. Megan is one of our solutions advisors, and she really helps not only work with firms in the ideation phase of identifying their issues or the opportunities they have to work for us, but she also leads a lot of internal projects here at Boomer as well. And one of those topics recently was rethinking firm-wide meeting standards. You know, over the last couple of years, as firms have started to work differently with one another, maybe more hybrid, more remote, things of that sort, this idea of collaboration through meetings and how to best have that work most effectively for your organization is something we started to consider for ourselves. So Megan, I will start with a question. Why is it important for firms to think about meeting standards?
Yeah, I think it's important if there's a lot of pain or confusion around these topics, which all really boils down to time. For Boomer Consulting, Q4 is a very busy time for us delivering client work. And then Q1 is typically a big internal project quarter. So between those two quarters, we are accomplishing a lot, and we also feel the pain when it comes to capacity and time. I feel like it really hit us hard this last year, the capacity and time strain, and we knew something had to change. We had people who were delivering virtual client engagements while scheduling and participating in internal meetings, spending over 90% of their time doing those things, leaving 10% or less to accomplish the rest of their daily tasks. So when did that work get done? Evenings and weekends, and we were just feeling the burnout really hard company-wide. So we took some time to figure it out. We discussed the why, and we discussed the what if. What if we did this? What if we tried this? And then examined it after 60 days. After we finalized the what ifs, we all agreed team-wide we would give it a try, and that we would each be responsible for our own time, our own calendars, and we would take ownership of that and hold each other accountable. Boomer Consulting is completely remote and virtual, so our clients are our calendars are a really important tool for us. We also have people in every time zone in the US, so that adds just another layer of complexity, but everyone was willing to give the new standards a try.
So we had, just to kind of recap that, which was great, we had some compression last year, certain times of the year, driven by a couple different things, whether it's client work or whether it is, internal projects, or, in most cases, a mix of both. I think our clients can relate a lot to that with various deadlines throughout the year and having a lot of compression. And the work doesn't slow down when meetings increase internally. So I think as you stated, we started to have this tension where how do we not only have the collaborative conversations we need to have in the company, but how can we also kind of honor everyone's workload that needs to be completed as well? And you mentioned in some cases that was happening nights and weekends, depending on the role and the level of compression that person was feeling. And so we started to evaluate, how we ran meetings, and you were instrumental in driving that conversation forward. And I think you're right. Everyone was open to it, willing to give it a try. But I have a question for you, because maybe our listeners are sitting there thinking, well, I think we probably need to do this, whether it is we have meeting overload happening in our firm, or maybe we could just be getting more out of our meetings. Where should firms even begin when looking at firm-wide meeting standards?
I think the first step is addressing the current state. Our tension's high because everyone feels they don't have enough time in the day to complete their work. Are there bottlenecks that are holding up other people's work because they simply don't have enough time to complete their own? Are your people feeling burnt out? Do you show up to meetings that could have been emails, or at the very least organized and ran better? If you answered yes to most of those, I think it's time to consider what if there were blocks of time. We do 3 hours daily at Boomer Consulting, where your people have unavailable or uninterrupted time, with exceptions, of course, to do their work. and it was standardized across the company, no matter the time zones. We also addressed what meetings should be and that everyone comes to each meeting prepared. Prior to joining and adding in any thoughts or questions, we use Box. So in Box Notes, it just makes for a more efficient meeting. And there's a lot more to address when it comes to processes and capacity, but I do think just addressing current state is a great starting point.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, Megan. Some phrase or a phrase we say here, or some of us say here, is all progress starts with the truth. And that's essentially what you're saying is what's the current state? What are things like as it pertains to how we want run meetings right now? And I love your statement, like, could this meeting have been an email? And that can sometimes be a hard question to ask, but I think it's one we should be asking ourselves or asking one another, because everyone's time in the firm is vitally important. And we want to make sure we use that in the most effective manner possible. And so I love that advice there, but identifying that current state is where they should begin. So as you think about kind of the process we've been through and kind of what we've seen happen thus far with this, what type of results have you seen us experience here at Boomer as we've looked to refine and really focus on our meeting standards?
Yeah, I can speak to my experience and the feedback from the team. We are about 8 weeks in from addressing the problem, which was lack of time and capacity to do our work because all of our time was spent in meetings. What I've noticed so far is that our people are really enjoying the unavailable time. I've also noticed that people have been able to pick up more important projects again, like how to improve our processes to continue gaining capacity to do that higher level work that fuels us all. I've seen a continued and elevated discussion around mental health and the importance of it. More people are taking the time to upskill by reading, listening to podcasts, or LinkedIn Learning, however they like to learn and absorb knowledge best.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot there, but I almost feel like one statement that could potentially summarize what you said is that more people are spending time on either working on themselves or on the business versus just in the business, right? Or in their day-to-day roles. I think
Yeah.
prior to meeting standards, there was just so much of treading water, keeping our head above water,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get things done that needed to get done. Now, people are able to have a little bit of breathing room and not only get the important things done in their role, but also look to the future and build for the future. And I think that's what our clients want us to spend our time doing. And that's what really our clients need us to be spending our time doing. And I think that stays true for our firms as well. So, one question we often ask on this podcast, Megan, is how is this topic relevant to outside the profession? Sometimes our profession can be a little guilty of just looking within our walls and saying, what are other firms doing? And not really asking the question, and what are other professions doing or other people around the world doing as it relates to this topic? Anything you would like to add there?
I think this topic is relevant to any business that is truly people focused. Good, knowledgeable people are the hardest commodity to find. It's the biggest struggle in the accounting profession today, finding people. So if you have those good people and you're piling them with work, putting them on a ton of teams or committees, and or managing too many people, when are they going to find the time to do their job function tasks, likely their evenings or weekends? Once people start working into the evenings and weekends, they usually take a turn for the worse with burnout and employee dissatisfaction. Humans are meant to rest 10 hours a day. 7 to 8 of those hours are meant for sleep, 2 to 3 of restful activity, 20 to 60 minutes of physical activity to complete their stress cycle, 8 hours to work, and hopefully spending the rest of their time finding joy. If your people are working 10 plus hours a day just to keep up, it's not sustainable and it's not healthy. So give your people time to do their work, to think, to upskill and grow, and to innovate. I guarantee in the long run, everyone will be thankful for it.
That's great. And when it comes to attracting and retaining employees, having what you just described be true in your organization is vitally important. Okay. So as we kind of finish out here, Megan, what's the next step someone should take? Maybe our listeners are driving to the office right now, or maybe they're listening on their lunch break and they're thinking, okay, I think there's an opportunity for us to improve our meeting standards and kind of how we approach the topic of meetings. But I'm not quite sure where to start yet. What's your advice there?
I think determining if this is a project that needs to be tackled now or in the future. I've addressed the pain that we went through and what we were trying to accomplish with the meetings and calendar standards. Every organization has their own processes and procedures that need to be addressed first. This was just our current pain point and process improvement project. But one could simply start with, sending a survey out to everyone, or having all the managers ask their people, how are they doing? How do you feel about your time and your capacity? How is your mental health? Look at all the hours people are putting in. Research and understand the current state of where you're at today, and then kind of build towards what you want it to look like.
Awesome. All right. So you are very knowledgeable about this topic. As I mentioned, you help lead this effort internally at Boomer Consulting. If someone wanted to reach out to you and just ask you a couple questions or get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You could email me, megan.schottler@boomer.com, or you can go to boomer.com and click Meet the Team. You'll find my bio and social media links there.
Awesome, Megan. All right. Well, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast. And for our listeners, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. So if you enjoyed the conversation Megan and I just had, know that we release those new episodes every Tuesday morning, and we are always mixing up the topics. This episode might be about rethinking meeting standards. The next episode might be about technology or growth or talent or leadership. But one common theme is they are all critical to your firm's success. So please subscribe, and thanks for listening. And Megan, thank you for being on this episode.
Thanks, John.